Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Live with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk. I'm just trying to get the camera contrast to work here. It's not behaving itself. There we go. Should be better now. Anyway, I apologize. Yes, for some reason my camera was not picking up my camera software. Don't know why. Anyway, it should be sorted now. And we should be all good. We got 15 people here. Welcome, everybody. I hope everybody has had a great weekend. I've had a fantastic weekend. It's been a busy weekend, but I've had a fantastic weekend. Just this afternoon, we spent most of the day down at the local car dealership, and we bought ourselves a new car because the one we have, let's just say, is on its last legs and probably will not survive the end of the week. So it was kind of a case of, well, it's just something we have to do. So we bought ourselves a new car, and we like the car. It's really good. So really looking forward to getting stuck into that new car. I'm just refreshing this because it's being a pain in the butt. The YouTube studio thing. Yeah, okay, that should be okay. That you can't see what I'm talking about, but it's now fixed for me. I was not seeing any of the chat. The chat was just completely blank. And now it is miraculously filled with people. So I don't know what happened there. I've never seen it do that before. That's got to be the very first time that I have ever seen it where the chat is just completely blank. There's nothing there from anybody. So we got a Kyle's wanting to know what car we got. We got ourselves a nice red shiny Fiat Tipo, which I don't think you can get in the United States. It's pretty much a European car, but it's very nice. It's a very cool car. Fiat basically I think they are owned by BMW. I think, or at least I think they are partly owned by BMW. And so as a result of that, I think it has a BMW engine, which is quite nice. I don't think I've ever had a car that's had a BMW engine. But anyway, at least I mean, anyone that is actually a car expert, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I think it's a BMW engine. I could be wrong. It could be a Renault engine, I suppose. That's entirely possible. But yeah, that's the car we got. It looks pretty nice. It's going to be a step up from the car we have. At the moment, we have a Fiat Panda, which we've had for maybe 8-9 years, and it's pretty much dying. There are a reasonable number of hills here in this particular part of Scotland that we're in, so we started noticing that it was having issues basically going up and down a particular hill. Particularly going up that particular hill. You could normally do that hill in 4th gear, no problem. And now you have to drop down to 2nd, and it crawls up the hill even in 2nd gear. So we're just kind of like, I think the engine might be kind of on its last legs. So new car it had to be. All right, let's go see who is here in the chat. And we got Tony Stringer here. He was first in the door. And he says, I will not be first anyway, but I think you were. Billy Morgan's here too, as is Ron Figura. And Casmos1 is also here. He says, hail to the Ouija's. Yes, I am not a Ouija. My wife is, but I'm not. If you're wondering, anybody outside of Scotland who does not know what that is, it's basically a slang term for somebody from Glasgow. My wife is one. I am not. I am. My family are actually from the Highlands on the northwest coast, so much further up north and right on the coast of Scotland. So that's where my family are all from. But we have family spread right across the whole of the country. So we have family in Aberdeenshire, in Stirling, in Dumfriesshire. As well as Glasgow and Edinburgh. So, and then we've got lots of family down south in England as well. So, but yes, I'm not a Ouija. But any Ouijas that are here are always welcome. No question about that. Let's see. Neil Thompson is also here, who's saying he is pre-liking the show, and then he's going for a bike ride because it's nice out, and then he'll be back in about 15 minutes. Awesome. Thank you, Neil. We got Caldrajusiak here. We got Goat My Five, who is in Salzburg, the home of one of my heroes, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. We got Don Oliver, we got Danny Taylor, we got Stephen Wilson, one of my favorite bass players, and we've got who else do we have? Let me go down and see. We got Daryl Harrison, which is the most fun name to say with a Scottish accent. And we have... Who else do we have? Let's see. We got H2K Music Labs is here as well. And we got Keith from Radio Top Trumpet. We've got David Young. We've got Old School Funk and Soul, my good friend Mark, down in Birmingham, down in England. The original Birmingham, not that fake Birmingham that's in the United States. Fake, I'm only kidding. And we got Jeff Wood here as well. And we got Rich Cresswell here. So... now that Rich is here, we are into the final week, folks, of the Halloween Songwriting Challenge. So, Rich is here. So, Rich being here, if you have not gotten involved and you would like to get involved, Rich is your man. And he will put in the chat some instructions on how you can get involved and what you need to do to get involved. And, there are prizes up for grabs. So if you're interested in prizes and you're interested in songwriting and composing, because it doesn't have to be a song, it can be an instrumental. Then yes, there's an awesome contest that we're running right now. And the closing day is on the 27th, which is coming up fast, folks. That is going to be the Sunday night live show. Next week is the closing date, and then the unveiling of the winners will take place on the 30th. At least it will be the 30th for folks in the United States. For us here in the UK, it will be the 31st because it will be after midnight, which will be the eve of Halloween, which will be Halloween. So, I'm really looking forward to that show, and Rich Cresswell will be joining me on that show as we will be announcing the winners, plural, because there are going to be multiple winners this time. So I'm particularly excited about that. It's going to be great. Rich says you can connect with me here, and I can add you to the challenge workspace. Yes, we're doing it all in a workspace. Which is great. So if you're a member of Studio One Plus, this is dead straightforward. If you're not a member of Studio One Plus, but you have Studio One, and therefore you have a my.presonus.com account, it is still very straightforward to get involved. So you can certainly get involved with this, and it's going to be great. I'm running late this year because I've been so incredibly busy with the Studio One 7 launch. So I need to get my skates on, and I need to get this thing out the door and it's all up here. It just needs to get put into Studio One. So that's my challenge for this week, is actually to take an evening just to basically get the whole thing put into Studio One. And I'm going to be using a lot of version 7 features to make this happen for this year. So it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, I cannot win, because I cannot win my own contest. So, and yes, I have seen the question about exploding MIDI tracks. So we will take a look at that. And we got Russell Harris here as well. But yes, I wanted to make mention of the songwriting challenge because, we're into the final week, and Wednesday will be basically the last call for entries to get involved. We've got a few entries already. I would love to see a lot more. The more entries there are, the more chance of us being able to give away all of our prizes. And also, the harder it is going to be for me and Rich to decide who are the winners. So this year, it's not just songwriting, it's also mixing and remixing. So it's going to be bigger and better than we've ever done it before. So it's very exciting this year. And then, of course, the next big thing coming up for the songwriting side of what I do here is going to be the Christmas challenge. And I'm putting that on your radar now, even though we are we're a good couple of months away from that. So I want to get that. I want to get that out there into your minds. As we go through the course of these next few weeks, Rich and I will unveil the details for that, for the Christmas Songwriting Challenge. Because we want to do something a little bit different, just like we've done something a little bit different this year. Last year we did the Locrian Natural 6 scale for the Halloween Challenge. This year is the Dorian Flat 5 or the Dorian scale. And so the Songwriting Challenge for Christmas is going to be a wee bit different as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. Rich and I have yet to kind of have a bit of a meeting to kind of decide what the parameters for that is going to be. But it's going to be really, really cool. I'm really excited about that. All right, so we do have a couple of questions already. And so I want to address that. And that was way too many R's. Daryl Harrison, Daryl, my good friend. He says, how do I separate MIDI notes on one track onto separate MIDI tracks in Studio One? That's actually quite straightforward to do. And I need to just quickly set up a new song to show you how to do this. And there's a dead easy way for me to demonstrate this as well. So let's go and do that button there, and we'll get the camera on so that you can see my pretty, extraordinarily attractive face, because everybody needs to see it. No, I'm only kidding. So I am going to use UJam's fat for this. So we will get this guy into here, and hopefully it's going to load up. There we go. And so I've got lots of different drum loops here. Oh, and by the way, if you can hear the sound, we are right in the midst of Storm Ashley. I should have mentioned this right at the start of the show. We are right in the midst of Storm Ashley, and the winds are gusting up to like 70 or 80 miles an hour at the moment, literally. And I just heard an extremely strong gust of wind. So if for any reason the show stops and freezes and I lose connection, that'll be why. It would be probably because the power has gone or the internet has gone or both. And if that's the case, then that will be the end of the show, because I doubt I'll be able to come back. So if you're wondering, and you start posting in the chat, the show stopped, we're buffering, or any of that stuff, that'll be why. And I probably will find it quite difficult to actually respond and tell you what's going on. So I am going to grab one of these loops, and I'm going to drop it in here. And then this is what we will get. And I'm going to create a little loop range like that. And we'll just actually loop this for a second. Let's slow that tempo down, because it's a little bit fast. All right, so I like this. So here's what you need to do. You need to right-click this event here. I need to find the menu option. It's actually called Explode to Tracks, and I think it's here. It's in the instrument parts menu. Explode pitches to tracks. So if I click on this guy here, what it's going to do is every MIDI note that is in this drum track is going to have its own track. So we'll have a hi-hat track, we'll have a kick drum track, and we'll have a snare drum track. So watch this. There we go. So now, what will happen here is we have a couple of extra instances of fat, which is UJam fat drummer. And you can see here, it's labeled the events as kick, hi-hat closed, and snare drum. And then let's say you decide, hey, this is exactly what I want. I want this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of these events, because this kind of bluey, purpley color sucks. So I'm going to make them this color because it's just a wee bit easier to see. It doesn't change how they sound at all. But what I'm going to do here is, now that I've selected these guys, I'm going to right click here and I'm going to go transform to audio track, and I'm going to render inserts, preserve the instrument track state, and I'm going to remove the instrument. And then I've got this fixed tail. This fixed tail thing doesn't really matter too terribly much. It's just useful. You can have an auto tail if you prefer, but I'm just going to stick this like that. And now we have 3 audio parts. And then what I can do is I can rename these. Kick. And then I can go down to the next one. And I can rename this one. Hi-hat. Hi-hat closed. And then we'll rename this one. And this one is going to be the snare. So now that I've named all of these exactly how I want, what I can do now is I can open up the mixer, and these are all now nice audio events, and I can close that because I don't need it. I can close that because I don't need it. And then I can color these differently if I want to, or if I can keep these the same. And of course, I can also route these to a nice drum bus. And of course, in the UK, buses are always red. So I know we've got red and green right next door to each other, clashing colors. So what? I don't care. Buses are red. Get used to it. Accept the fact. And then I can do some individual processing on my kick, my snare, and my hi-hats. And I can do all of that stuff. Now, you might be the kind of person that likes to have the snare drum next to the kick drum and then the hi-hat kind of on top of that. You might be the kind of person that likes to do these in reverse order. So have the hi-hat, snare, and then the kick on the bottom. Whichever way you prefer to have them ordered, either in the track or in the mixer, just move them around however you want. And that is going to get, that's going to get you kind of what you want. And then you'll have your nice little drum loop here. And then you can just adjust some of the volumes. You can go, hey, you know what? I think this hi-hat's a little bit on the quiet side. Or you might decide that that kick drum is way too loud. What we need is more snare drum. And there we go. And that is how you do that. So that is how you get MIDI onto individual separate tracks. And then you can let's say you're doing this in Easy Drummer. I've been using Virtual Drummer Fat, but if you've been using Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer or Stephen Slate or any of those, and you've been constructing your drum part with drum fills and everything else, then when you do the explode pitches to tracks, it'll put toms on separate channels as well, and cymbals and the works. And then you can just render all of those to audio once you're happy with your drum part, and then that unloads all of the instances of that virtual instrument, which is going to give you some RAM back, which is something that you may need depending upon how much RAM you've got. In my case, I've got 16 gigs. 16 gigs tends to be pretty good. Unless I'm using a lot of orchestral libraries, in which case 16 gigs is not enough and I need more. I'll need something like 64 or 128 gigs of RAM, but this computer will only go up to 64. So I will have maxed out my RAM if I've done that. So I hope that this answers your question, Daryl. It was a good one. And as you can see, it's actually pretty straightforward to do. Let's go back over here. Good question. Like it. Like it, like it, like it. And Billy Morgan has already said explode to tracks. Yes, and that is exactly how you do it. How was my gig? Yeah, my gig was actually cancelled, unfortunately, due to the weather. So no gig. So instead we went and bought the car. So that's what we did. I should have said at the outset that the reason why we went to buy the car today was A, our car was beginning to die, and B, the fact that my gig got cancelled meant that gave us an opportunity to just go and buy the car. So I am. This was my moment to come out of retirement, and I didn't in the end. Let's see. Danny Taylor says, I keep scrapping my Halloween ideas. Yeah, I would say pick one of your ideas, Danny, sorry. I would say pick one of your ideas and then just see it out to completion. Just fight with it. Fight with it, persist with it, and see it through to its conclusion. Because you're running out of time, buddy. And I would love to have an entry from you. Definitely. Bobby Booth is here, which is awesome. Let's see. David Young's forgot to type the @Jonny Lipsham Studios. He only typed part of it. He says, I have been trying in vain to extract tempo from old MP3 files that are taken from CDs. The aim is to get them totally in time with the click, metronome, and then extract instrumental mix, etc. And Rich has actually nailed the answer to this question, so he is absolutely spot on. He says the tempo needs to be removed initially if it's detected. Then the best way to do this is to trim the first downbeat and start extracting the tempo. Yes, that's the best way to do it. Rich is exactly right. Neil is back from his bike ride. Awesome. CK Kirby is here. He says, regarding RAM, what's the optimum for running version 7? Anything, I would say, whatever you can afford. So if all you can afford is an 8 gig RAM system, use that. But here's the thing. If you are on a system and you can only afford 8 gigs of RAM, that's kind of like your max budget for your computer, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to play that game where when you're using heavy lifting plugins, excuse me, heavy lifting plugins like Ozone, or you're using a virtual orchestral library, or another virtual instrument like Contact or something like that that basically uses a lot of RAM in order for it to do its thing, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to render as soon as possible the results. So if you're working on an orchestral library and you're using, the whole orchestra, as soon as you're happy with what you've got, render it. Now, when I say render, there are 2 ways you can do that. One is you can transform to rendered audio. That commits the whole thing. Or you can do the halfway house, which is what I did with that UJam track. I used the transform to audio track, and then I made sure that I check that box so that I am preserving the instrument state in the background. So that means all the data for the instrument is there in the background, but the instrument is unloaded and it's no longer in RAM, and it's just basically just using the audio. But the good news about that is, let's say as you're doing that, you go, you know what? There's a wrong note in this second violin part that's not jiving well with the rest of the strings, or it's not jiving well with the woodwinds that I've got doubling those parts, and it just doesn't sound right. Good news is you can transform back to an instrument track. You can correct that note, make it right, and then you can transform it back to audio again. So you can play that dance. It is a little bit cumbersome and it is a little bit time consuming. But you can certainly play that dance if you've not got a whole lot of RAM, and it'll be just fine. So that's if you've got like an 8 gig RAM system. But if you can afford to go higher than that to 16 or more, then get more. But really, you only need a lot of RAM if you're using either plugins or virtual instruments that require it. Otherwise, I don't see the point. So in my case, I don't use a lot of heavy lifting plugins. I don't use a whole lot of orchestral libraries. I don't use a lot of virtual instruments that require a lot of RAM. So I've got 16 gigs and everything works perfectly for me and does exactly what I need it to do and has done for, on this particular computer, the last 5 years. So my next computer will probably be a 32 gig RAM system because my one before this one was an 8 gig RAM system and it was actually pretty good. The only thing it struggled with was rendering video. So if you are doing multimedia stuff, so if you are doing streaming like I am, or you are making videos like I also do, you're going to need a little bit more RAM. So my 16 gigs of RAM actually does okay for rendering videos and stuff like that. It does pretty good. But I'm going to need a faster processor and I'm going to need more cores and I'm going to need more RAM for the future, for what I'm doing going forward, because I've got some big plans for the future. I'm not yet in a position to be able to trade up and get a new computer. So I'm going to wait until this machine kind of gets a little bit more elderly. And then I will go up to a bigger, faster machine. And then I'll take it from there and, see kind of what my requirements are at that point. But it's a good question. And like Rich says, check your processor and motherboard requirements. There's usually a lot of good benchmarking tests, results from other people all over the internet. Yeah, that's a really, really critical thing. When you're getting aftermarket RAM, it's really important that you get matched RAM sticks. So they've got to be the same brand. They've got to be the same manufacturer. If you mix and match, you can end up with all sorts of issues where it's not just Studio One that crashes. It's your entire computer that crashes. And your whole computer just shuts off and then reboots. And then it might get itself caught in a little cycle of booting up, shutting off, booting up, shutting off. And it's usually because there's what's the darn word I'm trying to say here? Mismatch of your RAM sticks. So be very, very careful about the brands of RAM sticks you choose and make sure that they are compatible with your motherboard and your processor. So that's a really important thing to bear in mind. And make sure that you get the same brand, whatever that brand is. I mean, like if it's SanDisk, for example, make sure you get all your sticks are the exact same brand. Especially if, you've got like a particular stick that's in your computer just now and you're just basically supplementing it. So if you've got like 2 sticks of A that are SanDisk that make up 16 gigs of RAM and you've got 2 slots and you think, hey, why don't I put another 16 gigs in there? You want to make sure that the brand of those is exactly the same as the brand that you've already got. So you got to be careful about that kind of thing. Rich also says, if your instruments rely on RAM, check if the sampler you use allows you to purge unused samples. This is a big cache saver. Absolutely. Great advice there. Great advice. Mark says, what tech box to preserve MIDI? Please show me again. Yes, I can show you again. No bother. I'm going to have to basically just go to my edit, undo history, and I am going to go all the way back up here. So I'm going to close that and I'm going to do it again. So here are our exploded tracks as before. Big snort. All right. And if we're happy with that, now what I might decide to do here is I might decide that this hi-hat's a little bit on the quiet side. And I might decide, hey, I can turn it up in the instrument here. There we go. And then we can close that and then we can play it back, see if we like it. And actually, I do prefer that. That sounds pretty good to me. So I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to select these other instances of this instrument and I'm going to right click and then I am going to go to transform to audio track. And then in this dialog box here, you've got these check boxes: render inserts, preserve instrument track state, and remove instrument. So read carefully what these do. Render insert effects to audio. If disengaged, inserts are kept for real-time processing and automation. So if you want to do your automation and everything else after the fact, uncheck this box. That would be the case if you've got plugins on here. I don't. So I'm going to uncheck that for now. Preserve instrument track state. Support retransformation to instrument track. All right. So when you transform this to audio, all of the information about the instrument and the preset and all the settings for that preset are preserved in the background. So that when you transform it back to instrument, you are able to basically reload the instrument and its preset and all of its settings correctly. It will just pull those back up. Finally, remove instrument. Remove software instrument from the rack and remove external instrument channels. This option is only available if no other tracks are using the instrument. So if you have other tracks in this song that are using the same instrument, this will not be available to you. And then you've got the auto tail, either fixed tail, which this is, or you can check that to select auto tail, and then you can change this value here. I'm going to uncheck that and keep that as a fixed tail. And now that I've done that, I'm just going to go and check on OK. And there. Now notice how all of these tracks have been renamed to main out. Why is that? It's because these tracks were created by printing in solo each one of them, each one of the tracks from the main out. And it just renames them to main out. So in this case, we want this to be kick. And we want this one to be hi-hat. And then we want this one to be snare. And then we might kind of, mix these about a bit. He says not being able to move it. Why am I not moving? Why is that not moving? I've not locked it. Oh, I know why. It's because that was because I had still had everything selected. Well done, Lipsham. So now I've got these in the order that I want. I'm good to go. I personally still think this hi-hat is just a little on the quiet side. So I'm going to boost it a little bit. And now I'm happy with it. And then I can, like I said, I can now do some bus processing by creating a bus channel and what have you. But let's say I've decided that that little pickup note in the snare drum is not something I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this particular track here on its own, and I'm going to transform it back to instrument. And then I'm going to double click it here, and I'm going to look at this note here, and I'm going to say, it sounds great. It's a little bit late though. What if I want this really precise and on the grid? Well, I can do that. I can now go and move that like that. And I can move that one. And then I can go to this last one and I can do the same. So now everything is like really, really smack on the grid. It's probably going to lack its groove now because that little late upstroke ghost note sounds really good late, but and let's say I decided I want this ghosted note to be a little bit louder as well. The one at the end. And now I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transform back to audio track, keep those same options as before, and I'm going to hit OK. And now I have everything back as I had it. So everything is as I want it now. So there we go. That's how you do that. All right, Mark, please make sure that you do not have your caps lock engaged, please. I'd appreciate that. I know you're trying to get my attention, but yeah, please don't write in all caps, please. Let's see. Let me go back over here. CK says, hopefully I got max equipment to do the job without problems. Purchase a new Pro built Studio PC, Intel i9, 128 gigs of RAM, NVIDIA 6800. Nice. Need to use for music and video work. Yeah, that sounds like that'll do the work for you. Yeah. The thing you'd probably need to look out for is the number of cores that you have with your i9 processor and the speed of those cores. That's the thing to bear in mind. Neil says, one thing to consider, if your computer is reasonably new and has a motherboard and CPU that are pretty decent spec by today's standard, get the extra RAM for good future use of your machine. That's also a good point. Ronald asked about event effects. Did he actually do the at Jonny Lipsham thing? Because he should know better if he's not done that, because I don't see his question. He did. Okay, I found it. What is the procedure for adding effects to a specific clip in the track? I can show you that too. Let's go screen. No, wrong screen. Let's not go. I'm pressing all the wrong buttons here. Let's go back to Studio One and then hit the screen button. So let's say on this last little hit that we had here, let's just turn off snapping for a minute. Let's say we've decided on this bit here, we want a delay effect. So I'm going to go and grab the analog delay, and then I'm going to hold down, I think it's the Alt key, if I remember rightly. And you see how the event that we've now just split is now highlighted, and we have this nice little helpful tooltip that says add event effects. So I'm going to let go of everything, and now we've got our analog delay here. And we're going to do a little bit of analog pong kind of style stuff. And then when we play this back, especially if I loop this by a little bit more. I mean, even if I actually just put it there, it should still loop fine. But I think you get the idea, especially if I turn this guy up a bit. Let's give this a little bit more. Oh, that's my fade out that I'm changing. I don't want to change my fade out. There we go. Let's give this some drive as well, just for fun. There we go. So yeah, so that's pretty much exactly how you do it. So you can do this with anything. You can do this with a vocal if you want just one particular word to have a big reverb, or one particular word to have a delay, or whatever it is you want. It's Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC and drag and drop on your split event. So make sure to chop up the little bit that you want. Otherwise, it will apply the event effects to the whole event. So you need to turn the little bit there into a separate event all of its own, and then you can just drop that Alt drag or Option drag, and you'll get that onto that particular event, and that particular event is an event all on its own. And then if you're happy with that, you can also just bounce this if you want to, or you can just leave it as is. I quite often like to leave it as is. However, if I'm doing a lot of event effects, the event effects in the inspector, as you'll see here, can get a little bit clogged up. So see the section here? It's called event effects. And I can set this tail to say 1.2 seconds. And I can go, you know what? I'm happy with this. I like it. I like the way it is. And I don't want this clogging up and taking up processing power. So I can just hit this button here and it will render this event effects to this event here. But notice now the event has expanded a little bit, and that's fine. We don't mind that. But there's also this restore button. So again, this goes back to the whole thing of the non-destructive nature of editing in Studio One. It's very, very cool. Because what this now means is if I decide, you know what, I think I would like there to be more repeats, then I can just go and restore, and then I can go and edit this thing, and I can go and increase the feedback a wee bit. And then I can go, okay, let's take a listen to that. So let's go from bar 4. And then what we can do is we can just render it. And now what we'll see is the event has grown a little bit more. And that's okay. So I'm going to basically turn that fade out that way a little bit. There we go. So that is how you do that. So Ron says that's the ticket. There you go. So I hope that that is helpful, not just to Ron Figura, but also to a whole bunch of other people as well, because event effects is really, really powerful. And then the thing I would suggest you do is once you're happy with it, render it. And then if you decide later through your mixing process that maybe there's too many repeats on the delay, or there's not enough, or you want the effect to be louder, you can do that. You can just click the restore button and it will reload the effect complete with all the settings that you had, and then you can just adjust and then render it again. And all of that's available from the event inspector. So make sure that your Wii event here is selected, then click on the inspector, and then this event effects thing, it'll be down here somewhere down the bottom. And it'll catch your eye because you'll see the orange render button, and you'll know you just need to go grab this section, pull it up a wee bit, and then you're good to go from there. Interesting. There's a clip version. That's handy. That's really handy. I did not even know that that was there. So I can turn that into a clip to put into the clip launch if I want to. That's a handy little feature that I did not know was there. But you can also do some other things just on this particular event here. You can normalize that sucker if you want it to be really kind of, you know, an in the face smack if you want, like this. Depends what you want to do. In this case, I might just keep it as is. All right, so hopefully that has helped you out there. Great question. Great question indeed. I like it. Let me go back down. And yes, you can turn up the mix knob. Yes, you can certainly do that as well. Billy's saying turn up the mix knob. Yes, you can do that. RJ says, basic non-music question. Where in the heck can I control the picture that fuses into my MP3s. What do you mean by it fuses into your MP3s? Are you talking about the metadata? If you're talking about the metadata, that's easy. So again, let's go back to Studio One and let's go back to our screen here. Now, the thing to realize is if you go to song, and if you go to song setup, there's this little button here called meta. And in this case, I have this picture by default. If I don't want that, then I can just click on this remove image button, or I can click on the three dots here, and this will open up an Explorer or Finder dialog, and you can select a completely other photo, as we call it here in Scotland. Picture is the is the English equivalent. So yeah, you can totally put in another photo here, or you can use an artist preset. I've got a few here. So I've got one from my church because I do my church's podcast. And if I click on that, that takes away the image there. That puts I've just put King's Church here as a placeholder. Whoever's preaching, their name will go in there. Then the title will go in there. And it's always preaching and then the year. And that's all they want. And then I've got my own one here. Song title there, my name, the genre, my website, and the year. And then there's a picture of my studio here. I can put whatever I want on here. But here's the thing to understand. When you hit apply, this applies to only this song. So this metadata only applies to this particular song. If you don't have any of this set up, for example, then it's gonna draw the picture from whatever you've got set here in the artist profile on the start page. Again, you can change that here. So I could change that to me, I could change that to King's, or I could change that to my work profile, which is support, which has the Personas website. And also has just the word support there, and it doesn't have a genre. So you can either do it from here, or you can do it from that song. And go song setup, metadata, and you can either choose a preset here, or, and by the way, you can create as many of these as you want. And the way to do that is you can store a preset. So you could basically just you can just like blank this all out. And then, so I could like totally just remove this picture here. I could put Jeff in there, change the website to Jeff's awesome site. And I could put some future date like 2134 because Jeff is future boy. And then I can save this by hitting store artist preset. And now Jeff has his own preset for the future. So when Jeff comes to my studio to record in the year 2134, when my great-great-grandson is running my studio, or my great-great-great-grandson is running my studio, he will be able to use this profile in Studio One version 2131.3, or whatever version of Studio One we are on in the year 2134. So you just hit this, store artist preset. So if you're working with an artist regularly, it's a good idea to create an artist profile that has, that should be 2024, that has basically this information in it, pre-filled out and stored as a preset. So this has my name, it has the genre, it has the year, and it has the website. And then you can fill in whatever the song title is, whatever the album title is. You can put in whatever artwork you need for that particular record or that particular song. You can do that with great ease. And then you just hit apply and OK. And then when you are working with that particular artist, they've got all of that metadata pre-filled already. So when you do an MP3 for them, like even if it's just a rough MP3 mix down for them, a draft for them to listen to check out, then you're sorted. Their graphics, their name, all of their metadata will render to that MP3. It will not render to a WAV file. So if you are doing a WAV mixdown, you'll not get any metadata because metadata doesn't work on WAV files. So bear that in mind. There's only like a particular version of WAVs where you can have metadata embedded. And for that, you probably want to send your work to a production, like something like DistroKid, for example. And DistroKid will embed all of your metadata into the WAV files. Bear in mind that when you get those WAV files back from DistroKid, that you will only see the metadata on certain devices that will support those file headers. Not everything does. So you'll find that, like, for example, if you burn it to a CD and then you put the CD in the car CD player, or the car MP3, if it's a car MP3 player and you're doing it on an MP3, you should see the data. If not, it's because that MP3 player in your car does not support those file headers. So bear that in mind. It's sometimes not because you've not put the metadata in there or Studio One's got a bug or something. No, it's because not every device supports these file headers, and not every file format supports these file headers. So that's something to bear in mind. So let's cancel that. And let's go back over here. But that was an awesome question, because a lot of people struggle with that. They don't understand that this is how metadata works, and so they think, oh, Studio One just doesn't do the metadata problem. It doesn't do the metadata properly, so that's a Presonus problem, and Presonus need to fix that. And it's just like, it's not a bug. It's not actually a bug in Studio One. It's how metadata works, and has worked since metadata was invented, since MP3s were invented. And it's all to do with the current specification for MP3. Hopefully, future specifications of ID tags and metadata in MP3s will be better supported and going forward in the future. But who knows? We'll never know. Probably. Hopefully in the future we'll see that. I have scrolled down to the bottom and I'm not seeing any more questions, other than that Billy Morgan is saying always best to drug. Yes, incorrect usage of past participles for the verb to drag are acceptable only when Billy Morgan states them, because I know he's not referring to illicit substances. There we go. I think we've got to the bottom there. Neil Thompson says, in 2034, your great-great-grandson will imagine the song, and that's it. It'll be ready for playback. Yeah, probably. Probably something like that. Or, whatever version of ChatGPT is available in 2134. You basically say to ChatGPT, hey, I want a jazz funk 1970s style song in the style of Parliament Funkadelic, and I want Bootsy Collins on bass, and I want Dennis Chambers on drums, and you basically list off all of your favorite musicians that you want to perform your song, and then you kind of tell ChatGPT. I mean, this is like speaking to your computer. You're not even typing it. You're talking to your computer, and then you speak your lyrics to your computer, and then your computer goes, let me take care of that for you. And then 10 minutes later, it spits out the music, and it's your song in the style of Parliament Funkadelic with Bootsy Collins on bass and Dennis Chambers on drums. So that would be pretty awesome. Maybe not very creative, except for the fact that we've come up with this idea and we've come up with the musicians that we want to play on it. But other than that, we've not really done a whole lot of creative work. RJ Hagler is asking if droog is the correct past participle of the verb to drag. No, it's not. It's dragged. I dragged the comb through what little of my hair is left on my head. That would be the correct past participle. I dragged it. I dragged that comb through my hair. So there you go. It's not I drug I it's not like I'm saying I drug the comb through my hair. I it You Americans have some interesting past participles because you also say that you dove into the hedge rather than you dived into the hedge. Now, actually, as it turns out, those are not incorrect past participles. They are just very old past participles that we don't use in the UK anymore. We have moved on. You guys in the United States have not. So you guys in the United States are using a slightly older version of English than we are here in the UK. So we would say I dived or I dragged, but you guys would say I dove or I drug. I can see how you would arrive at that conclusion, but it's an much older version of English from maybe like the late 17th century. Mark says dragging out MIDI to extend and copy only works with loops. I thought it was for all MIDI events. I'm sorry, what? It works for all MIDI events. I'm not sure what the heck you're talking about there. I'm gonna have to go and retransform all of this back. Let me go to edit history. Let's go and reverse all of that. We'll keep going. We'll go back one more. There we go. All right, so I now have this back to instrument tracks. Oh, that one isn't. History. All right, there we go. So we've gone back all the way back using the undo history to just these events. So now I'm going to put this back here. I'm going to put the snap to grid back on and make sure that that's snapped correctly. And everything sounds exactly as it should. So now if I was to range select all of these and move this thing down to the bottom, I can extend this out for as long as I want. And so let's turn off the loop. So that's just regular MIDI events. So there's nothing there that's a loop. Those are regular MIDI events. And I just drag the bottom. Oh, you can't see this. Through my trousers. All right, so let's go and Control Z. Oh, my mic got switched off somehow. I'm not quite sure how that happened. But anyway, you were able to see what I was doing. So for those of you that missed what I was saying, I was able to expand these all out to a 16 bar loop just by dragging the bottom. And then I showed here, you can do the same with audio without any issues. So you can do it with any MIDI event, you can do it with any audio event. It works both ways. You don't have to have the loop locators. See, they're switched off in this case. No loop locators, switched off, not engaged, doesn't matter. So even if I set this back to 1, right? Doesn't matter, look. I'm extending that one out. I'm extending this one out. Same with this audio event here. I mean, the other option you can try here, I mean, if you do, for example, have your locators set up, let's say you want 49 bars, right? Or even better, let's go and find that pesky end marker. Where's it gone? Here it is. Let's park that there. Let's zoom this in a little bit more sensibly. And let's say we want all of this. We want all of this to loop to the end. Where's loop to end? I thought that was an option. Maybe I've missed that. Where's loop to end as an option? I'm not seeing the loop to end option. There is definitely a loop to end option. I can't find it. Maybe I'm extremely blind, but you can certainly do that. You can certainly do this so that this loops all the way to the end. I just can't remember right now how to do it. Event. I'm not seeing it as an option, but you can certainly do it. I know you can do it, so I don't know why I'm not seeing it. That's very strange. Because I didn't want to have to do this for each track. I wanted to be able to just select loop to end. I thought you could. Maybe I got that one wrong. It's entirely possible I have that wrong. Oh, idiot, yes. I've suddenly realized what I've done wrong. Uncheck that guy and recheck it. That's all I needed to do. And now it loops to the end, and then I can do the same with this guy as well. I can right click this, I can uncheck the loop, recheck it, and now it loops all the way to the end. So now I have 49 bars of this. Yeah, Mark, it works. I'm not sure what you're doing wrong, but it absolutely works. It works with any audio event. So, for example, if I just create a track here, and I'm just going to call this that, and I'm going to solo it here. And if I just record myself talking into the microphone, talking into the microphone, talking into the microphone, and then if I end that there, I can just drag that like that all the way to the end. Or I can double click the event. Oops. I can right click the event, I should say, and then just do loop. And it'll loop that all the way to the end. record myself talking into the microphone, talking into the microphone, talking into the micro, record myself talking into the microphone, talking into the microphone, talking into the micro, record myself talk. And as you can see, it's just looping that event. But if I do this with a virtual instrument of any kind, so let's go grab presence for a second. I know we've run over, but hey, I want to make sure that this is clearly understood. And we'll go grab an organ just for why not. And I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to turn that off. And then I'm just going to hit record. All right, so I'm happy with that. And I can either just drag that all the way along, and it repeats. Or I can now go and loop it all the way to the end. Just like that. So as you can see, it works. Okay, so you can just drag these events, whether they are loops from your loops browser or any other file, or you just literally record it. It loops. But there we are. We are at the end of the show, folks. Thank you very much for coming. We have an after show all organized and set up by Billy Morgan. So if you'd like to join us over there, I have not touched my cup of tea once. So my cold cup of tea will be drunk during that show. Arami says, my wish is for Harmony Wizard and NoteFX Corder to come together and be a super tool. You can use the Corder in... You can use the Corder tool. You can use the NoteFX Corder and use the tools from Harmony Wizard at the same time on the same event. You can totally do that. However, thing to note is Harmony Wizard is a third-party product. It is not made by Presonus. It is made by Lukas Rusicka, and Corder is a Presonus NoteFX MIDI effects. So the two are totally separate, totally distinct, totally different, and because of that, because one is a third-party product and one isn't, you will never ever see them join together to become one tool. That will never ever happen. Because Harmony Wizard is made by a third-party entity, which is Lukas. And that feels weird to call Lukas an entity. Sorry, Lukas. But there it is. All right, so that's the end of the show, folks. And I will see you all on Wednesday for Songwriting Simplified, and it'll be your last call for the Halloween Songwriting Challenge, and then the closing date will be on the following Sunday. So that's next Sunday is the closing date. So make sure you get your entries in if you want to win some hardware and some software prizes. So please do. We'd love to have the more the merrier. So until Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central, I will see you all then. Come and join us on the after show. Take care. Bye for now.